Today is my test run of the bags on my gravel bike for my bike packing trip coming up. So as of right now, filming this video, I'm 5 days away from doing my first ever bike packing trip. I wanted to do a quick, short overnight trip to test everything out. I just haven't had time. So I'm gonna load everything up and I'm gonna go for at least an hour ride to see how the bike feels, to make sure the bags are secure. I did a ride to the airport to pick up a rental car a couple of days ago with the rear rack and the panniers loaded down a little bit, and the rack actually slipped. I didn't have one of the bolts tight enough. So those are the kind of things that I gotta figure out now if they're gonna work before I show up for this tour and just have it not start off well. I'm gonna show you the bags. So you may have seen my other video where I showed the bags that I have. They're Ortlieb bags. Listen, I pronounce it Ortlieb because I went on their website and looked at some of their how-to videos, and that's how they pronounce it. So someone called me out, said I was mispronouncing it. I'm gonna say Ortlieb because, again, that's the way they pronounced it in their videos. If you wanna say Ortlieb, go ahead. All right, so I'm gonna show you the bags. I've already got a couple of them on. I'm gonna show how the rack goes on because I really like the rack. I can convert my everyday gravel bike to a bike packing bike pretty simple because the rack is so easily taken on and off the bike. So let's look at the bags real quick. I already have the frame bag on, and because I cannot use a full water bottle, I went ahead and mounted 2 water bottle cages on the side of this bike. So that's one thing I really like about a full-on gravel bike with braze-ons, is because you can do things like this. So rather than running a front rack, I can easily just mount some water bottles. The handlebar bag took a little bit of research on how to get this right, but once you do, it's pretty easy. So in this handlebar bag, I've got my tent, in this case it's a hammock. So I've got a hammock in there, I've got my tarp, and I've got my camp chair, which is a Helinox chair. Having a camp chair at a campsite makes a huge difference in comfort when you're just chilling out. Now I'm gonna put the rack on. Since this frame already has the threads, the braze-ons for a rack, I leave these pegs on. This is where the rack mounts onto, and with those already on the bike, the rack comes on and off the bike really quickly. Now what's nice about this rack is it comes with other pegs that can just wrap around the frame. So even if your bike does not have braze-ons for a rack, you can put this rack on a traditional bike. So all you do with this rack is set it on the pegs, and then you're just gonna push down on the little levers to lock it into place. So locked on, and then up here, I've already adjusted this strap. So all I have to do is do that, and the rack is on. So that's secure. Now I've got the seat pack installed. This is where all of my clothes will go. And in this bag, by the way, I'm gonna just have various things: snacks, my charging bank, cables, tools for working on the bike. And by the way, this goes on really easily. Like, all you do is you just wrap this around the seat rails and then wrap that around the seat post. The way these rear panniers work is they set on top of the rack. And to get them off, by the way, all you do is lift up that handle. When you do, you can see those little clips rotate up. So it's very nice design. And then you just put these around the frame, tighten those down, the bags are secure. They also go on really quickly. Like, I just set them on, rotate these, tighten them, and yeah, it's like 20 seconds and the bags are on. So handlebar bag on, top tube bag, seat bag, panniers. The last thing is I've got to strap my underquilt on. So my underquilt is in this dry bag. This is my hammock underquilt. So this would be a pad, a sleeping pad if it was warmer. On this trip, it's supposed to be down into the upper 40s, low 50s, so I'm going to use my underquilt. I'm nervous about this, to be honest with you. I got to make sure it fits there and I can strap it down. Well, that actually worked really well. That was easy. It tucks right under there. I just used the bungee cords. So I've got a bike packing bike, y'all. This is going to be cool. One of these bags, by the way, has my top quilt, my camping stove. The other one has food, a water filter. Oh, the only other thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna strap some flip-flops or slides on top of here. Probably my slides, but I can't do that right now because they're on my feet. And that way I'll have some shoes to walk around the camp with. You know, listen, I did the math when I was getting these bags, and I was like, I cannot fit everything without using the panniers. And like I said in my video where I introduced these bags, These are smaller panniers, so these aren't like massive touring panniers, and I've already ridden with them, you know, just the panniers in the rack, and my feet are very far away. There's no heel strike at all with these panniers. So now it's time to go get ready for this ride, and I'm just going to be totally honest with you. I'm actually pretty nervous about riding as far as I'm going to ride in 3 days with a bike loaded down. I mean, every day is about the length of my Saturday morning gravel rides that I do with just this bike not loaded down. So today has two purposes. One, it's just to test everything, make sure it's secure on the gravel roads, whatnot, but it's also to hopefully alleviate my concerns about riding a bike like this on gravel roads for so long. I have a power meter on this bike, so today I'm going to keep it in zone 2, and I'm going to see how long it takes to do this loop to see how much slower I am. So let's get going. All right, here we go. Bike packing. This is kind of crazy. You know, there's all kind of little things you don't think about. Like, you don't just throw your leg over your bike like you normally do, just over the saddle. You have to step over the top tube because everything just sticks up too much in the back. I think the handlebar bag really helps balance the bike. And this is pretty much fully loaded down. Like, I don't think I would add any more weight. So one of the things that I didn't show is I currently don't have a way to mount my Garmin Varia. So I ordered just a clip that clips onto a bag, and I can put my Varia on because I'm not going to do this tour without a Garmin Varia. So right now I'm relying on the old school, just listening for traffic and watching my mirror. So you just have to be a bit more attentive. I want to be able to focus on my scenery on this tour and not watching a mirror. All right, turning on to the first gravel sector. This is where I find out if everything's bolted on securely. For those of you who think that you can just rely on your ears and not use a Varia, you can't. I just had a big truck come around me that I didn't even hear until it was passing me. All right, so the handlebar bag, my thumbs are just barely touching it. If I wrap them in a little bit, they don't touch. So you can get this bag in a longer version, like for mountain bikes with flat bars, or this one. And when I was ordering the bags, the guy really helped me out and said, yeah, this is definitely the one you want to get if you have a drop bar bike. And these brake levers are angled in a little bit because it's the bars have a flare. Also not too bad taking the hands off the bars, loaded down. All new territory for me. Just didn't know what to expect. Another thing that I realized before I headed out, which I'm glad I did, I had to add like 5 to 7 PSI just because of the extra weight on the bike, you know, to the tires, because I normally run pretty low pressure. Like, I run 40C tires and I run about 22 to 23 in the front and about 24 to 25 in the back. You want to find the right pressure to support the bike, but you still need it to be compliant over the bumpy gravel roads, because this tour is a lot of gravel. Like, it is a gravel bike tour. Obviously, there's a bump, you got to do pavement, but a lot of it's gravel. This gravel road is really bumpy and pitted, so this is a good test of the security of my bags right now. Now, I was thinking, like, how could I add more volume if I wanted to carry a bit more stuff? And I could do one of two things, or both. Is add a full frame bag or put on a front rack. Ortlieb, however you say it, makes some smaller front bags that are nice. Pretty compact, shouldn't be too, you know, non-aerodynamic. But I tell you, you know, I could get away with no panniers if I was just going to do credit card camping. You know, just go from hotel to hotel, because my sleep system takes up like half of my space. Hammock, top quilt, under quilt, tarp, and the poles, because it's a bridge style hammock. And I've got the poles in this frame bag, by the way, I didn't mention that. My knees are hitting the frame bag a little bit. I pedal with my knees inward a little bit, and I'm slightly concerned about this because if my knees go out too much, I can have IT band problems. It's not bad, I think it'll be okay, but yeah, I've got to consider that. I think a full frame bag, the bulk would be a little bit lower, so that probably wouldn't happen. But I think a front rack with those little bags would be a nice addition for bigger trips. I really debated whether or not I should add fenders. I almost ordered some, but I just didn't know how they would fit on this bike with this setup. And fortunately, the weather looks really good for next weekend. And also, you know, it's really comforting to know these bags are waterproof. All right, slight uphill here. I can feel the weight. One slight change I made to my cockpit is I had to take off my Garmin out front mount and just use the little O-ring mount. So it's right here on the side. No big deal, fits fine. The 1030 was too big. It hit the bag, but the 840 did really well. No contact with the bag, so I will have all of my routes on that 840. That's a very vital piece of equipment for this tour. On this gravel road, I feel like I'm going about 2 miles an hour slower than I would if I didn't have the bags on, which is about what I expected. I'm thinking I'm going to average 13 to 14. Maybe that's too lofty, but we'll see. So I'm actually a little concerned right now about my knees rubbing this frame bag. I cannot use a top tube bag because of that reason. This isn't as bad because it sits below the top tube. We have to give this some consideration. Now I was thinking, if I were going to do credit card bike packing, staying in hotels and going to restaurants, carrying some food and some clothes, I could get away with just the seat pack and the handlebar bag, because both of those are pretty roomy. I mean, I've got, you know, my full hammock and the tarp and the Helinox chair all in this one bag, so it's really spacious. So all kind of possibilities you can do. But man, I just love camping. Let me rephrase that. I love camping if it's not pouring down rain. Camping in the rain is just not a lot of fun. But at least I got a big tarp in here, you know, like if it were raining, you could sit under your tarp with your chair. I'll have to say that seat bag really holds firmly when I'm out of the saddle on little climbs. Not wagging at all. It's really nice. I just concluded that I'm going to try to get a front rack for this bike and not use the top tube bag. I'm really different than a lot of people, just the way my legs are shaped. I can't handle my knees rubbing this top tube bag for 210 miles. Would not be a fun trip. Okay, well, I've got 4 days to try to get 2 more bags in a rack. Just for the heck of it, I'm gonna see how many watts it takes to hold 18 miles an hour on this fairly flat road. 230 watts. 200. 230, 220. Yeah, probably about 220 watts is what it would take. Dang it! I missed my Varia. Didn't even hear that truck. See? All of you Varia naysayers, if anything has come out of this ride, I've just proved you're all wrong. Varia.
If you don't have one, get one.
Without much wind, zone 2 takes me to around 15 to 16 miles an hour. So I should expect that on the pavement and probably a couple miles an hour slower on the dirt roads. And finishing it up with this little trail in the back of my neighborhood. It's pretty bumpy for a gravel bike, especially when it's loaded down, but So far, so good. I'll have to say, every bag has done great. I mean, the knee rubbing is more me than the bag, but every other bag is just perfect. The bike handles well. Like I thought the bike would be really hard to handle. This 9er RLT9 is such a sweet bike. Just handles very well with the bags. Much better than I thought it would. This is going to be my plan B if I cannot get the front rack in time. So what I did was I took my top quilt and I strapped it on the back as well, and that freed up one of the saddlebags, which is actually more room than I have in that frame bag. I have another dry bag. I wouldn't leave it out like that, but that's my, Spark. That's my warmer weather top quilt. So that's what I would do if I cannot get the front rack. So yeah, I'll report back on the trip. So my next video of bike packing will be actually on the trip, and hopefully by then I have a front rack. If not, that's what we'll do. That ride was 18.25 miles. It took 1 hour and 14 minutes, just a little bit more than that. About 5 to 8 minutes slower than a zone 2 pace without the bag. So not bad. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. I learned a lot in that 1 hour ride. I can't imagine how much I'm going to learn on this bikepacking tour. So listen, I was really apprehensive about riding with a really loaded down bike, but those apprehensions have been resolved with this ride. So it was a huge success going out and testing these bags. All right, I'll pick it up on the tour. Thanks for watching.